Do you recognize this man? Professor Plomplepop. Plomplepop right here is a reoccurring character in Nerdchacho's Planet Coaster Parks. And almost a year ago, I was given the opportunity to design Professor Plomplepop. Nowadays, I go by a new username, but I figured today I'll kind of walk you guys through how to design this character, and I'll show you guys how you can design characters similar to this. Now, the first thing you need is an idea. In my case, I got pretty lucky as this character was already created and there had been a couple lands at that point created for him. Or one, I don't quite remember. But still, there had not been any character made up yet. So what do you do if you don't have an idea yet? Well, you come up with one. Okay, so right on the spot right now, I'm just going to come up with a random character name, then I'm going to design it just to show you guys how to do this. Okay, I just came up with a random name, Jingle Winkles. Now, what comes to mind when I think Jingle Winkles? Unlike Plomplepop, I definitely think Jingle Winkles is a little smaller and is definitely not as plump. And you know what? I think Jingle Winkles rides on ice skates. Oh yeah, and also for this video, I'm building no TMTK, so everybody can relate to this. Something that's really useful when it comes to designing characters is going outside of basic shapes. What I like to do is I just go to all and kind of just scroll to a random place. There's definitely a lot of smaller items that you can use kind of to your advantage that aren't TMTK to kind of just like give your characters a little bit more detail. For example, let's go back to Professor Plomplepop. His coat right here is made out of these like fairy lights, and the eyes on his little bubblegum friend is it's made out of coal. Also, another thing that can come in really handy if you're still struggling with the ideas phase, or you're just struggling to kind of like build out your character, is just go through all the items. Very similar to what I'm doing in my park series right now. All of these items, they have so many ideas built into them. It's most likely that you'll be able to drag an idea from one of these items and incorporate into your character. For example, right here, I found this TNT cannon, and it's kind of inspiring me to make this Tinkle Winkle character a little rambunctious. We might be able to give Tinkle Winkle a revolver. Probably not a good idea. And you can even tell now, even without a face or any coloring on the body, this character is already starting to kind of come into its own. And the great thing about designing characters is that you don't have to stick with anything. For example, I think I'm going to scrap some of my like original like cheery ideas for Tinkle Winkle and kind of just make him a mainly rambunctious character. But vice versa, you don't have to be scared to go back to some of your original ideas. It's all about being creative and experimenting. One thing that definitely is a rule that should be taught when making these small scale characters is that you should always look for like obscure pieces. Pieces like this miniature jack-o'-lantern. You can reuse them, recolor them, and create entirely new things. Like, I don't even know what I just put on these legs, but it's a cool little detail. And I know I also said I'm not going to be using TMTK, and I'm still not. But if you see this right here, this is a really good way that you can use TMTK to your advantage. Because of how small some creators get, you can get really detailed on these builds. If of course you have access to it. Now again, I will get rid of these right now, but it's good to note that if you do have access, it's a really good tool. And even if you don't have access to TMTK, there are a lot of great alternatives, or just items I highly recommend using. Like these holiday ornaments, they're great for small details. And I guess my final piece of advice is don't be afraid to venture from scenery over to building. While a little harder to find, there are definitely a lot of great details for building in the building tab, especially if you have TMTK. But I think if you're going to take away anything from this video, just remember this. Story matters. That's how I came up with this stupid looking prospector baby, and that's how I came up with Professor Plomplepop. The more you think of your characters as characters and less as just set pieces for your obligatory dark rides, the better they're gonna look. As one final last Professor Plomplepop example, I just thought of his name and I thought, okay, if this was a show, what would he be doing with the name Professor Plomplepop? So I thought bubblegum, of course. Pop, bubblegum, pop, bubblegum. But yeah, that's all for me. This prospector baby is going to be on my Steam Workshop today, so feel free to use him however you like. Just make sure to credit me. But yeah, that's all for me. Chazadex out.